hope, the way I see it, it's a strong internal trust and expectation that all will be well, and an essential ingredient in producing good outcomes. I think that if we want things to develop well, if we don't hope in them, if we don't believe that they will, in fact, come out well, I think it diminishes the chances. So I think it's very important to start any endeavor, any project, with the idea that it's possible and that I can do it. My name is Hunter Halder, and I share hope.
Welcome to I Share Hope, the podcast where world leaders share their real stories of hope and how you can use actionable hope to start changing your life today. And now, here's your host, Chris Williams.
Okay, Hunter Halder, thank you so much for taking our call from I Share Hope. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. As the Portuguese say, I'm catita.
Well, you don't sound like you're really from Portugal. Where are you originally from?
I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I was born in Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah?
But I grew up in a small town outside of Richmond called Chester.
No kidding. And now you're sitting in Portugal right now, right?
Yeah, I've been living in Lisbon for 26 years, wow. And I'm thinking about learning the language.
It's about time to start, you know. So what took you from Virginia to Portugal?
It was an airplane.
Yeah? A big one, I hope, and it got you right there. So what caused that? Why did you get on the airplane?
Well, it's kind of strange because I was actually away from the church for many years, okay. And I happened to come back on a certain day, which was the 12th of October, 1985, which meant absolutely nothing to me. But to the ladies at the church, it was a major miracle day in Portugal. An apparition happened in Portugal in 1917, and it lasted for 6 months, sporadically during 6 months. And the big finale, with a miracle that was witnessed by all these people and put in the newspapers at the time, happened on the 13th of October.
Okay.
So it's a big day in Portugal for the religious community. Yeah. And that was a Saturday when I went back into the church. And so the first mass was a vigil of that day. And so the ladies are watching, they're picking up on this. I had no idea at all. And so like 2 years later, in 1988, they gave me a plane ticket to go to Fatima in Portugal as a pilgrim. And it was a gift. So I went, me and about 100 ladies with hair so white that it was blue, and me at the time I was 38. Now I would kind of fit in with the old ladies a little bit, but at the time it was a little bit weird. You know, there's all these old ladies and then this guy, and I fell for the tour guide, and she did too, and so we got married and had a son, who is a co-founder of ReFood with me.
No kidding.
It's a kind of a strange story, but it's absolutely true.
That's a crazy story.
That's
really bizarre.
And I actually hitchhiked to Fatima because the plane was leaving from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was living in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time. And I had the plane ticket, which was given to me, but I didn't have a way to get to Charlotte. So I made a little cardboard sign that said Fatima, which is the destination in Portugal. And I went out onto the Interstate 85, I think, and stuck my thumb out. And somebody picked me up and said, well, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Fatima. And he says, well, where's that? I said, well, it's just after Charlotte. You get me to Charlotte and I can make
it's the next stop. That's right. That's bizarre.
It is.
That was a made-to-be kind of thing. I don't know how you could have avoided that. Sounds like everything lined up for that one.
Well, it gets stranger because the family house belongs to my ex-wife. She's now an ex-wife. You know how that happens, and it's in a section of Lisbon, which is divided into boroughs or parishes, I guess we call them in the States. And the name of it is Nossa Senhora de Fatima, Our Lady of Fatima. It's the name of the place where I live.
No way.
It happens to be, and so obviously the church in this part of the city is called Our Lady of Fatima. So, you know, you can't get away from it.
Bizarre. That's crazy.
It is. And there was once a news story where, news people sometimes don't get everything correct.
Yeah.
And so they were enamored with these coincidences of the name Fatima, and they gave my ex-wife, whose name is Christina, they gave her in the story the name Fatima because it's also a name for people.
That's perfect.
So it took it a little too far,
You connected as many dots as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And I read that and I said, whoa, that's stretching it a little bit.
That's hilarious. So you're there in Portugal now, obviously. You're the founder of the ReFood movement. And what you wrote here when we were corresponding is that you're an American at home in Portugal who, after a wide range of diverse and seemingly unconnected career experiences, found his purpose as a dedicated volunteer when at the tender age of 59, he founded the ReFood movement. Now it all makes sense. That's what you wrote. Now, I don't want all that to make sense quite yet, so I'm going to ask you about the ReFood movement in question 4. Sure. But let's jump into these questions because you're one of our 1,000 people who is sharing hope. Thank you for being part of our survey. I really do appreciate it. I know it's time on your schedule. And as you know, we're asking 1,000 leaders of hope that are leading in their niche in the world the same 5 questions about hope. And I just want to hear what your answers are. You get to answer them however you want. This is about you, not me or anybody else. It's you get to fire away. So you ready for me to start asking questions?
Absolutely.
All right, Hunter. Thank you for your time again. And if anybody's just now jumping into this feed, this audio, it's Hunter Halder, and he's in Portugal and the founder of the ReFood movement, which we'll get into more of here in a second. But question 1, Hunter, what is your definition of hope or your favorite quote about hope?
I'll give you both. My definition of hope, the way I see it, it's a strong internal trust and expectation that all will be well. And I think it's also the first and essential ingredient in producing good outcomes. I think that if we want things to develop well, we want things to go well, if we don't hope in them, if we don't believe that they will, in fact, come out well, I think it diminishes the chances. So I think it's very important to start any endeavor, any project, with the idea that it's possible and that I can do it. I think it's a big difference.
That makes a lot of sense. I think you're right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, question 2. Who's shared that kind of hope with you? Who's been the biggest sharer of hope in your life?
Well, it has to do with the ReFood movement. But I want to go back just for a second to the first question, because you asked me 2 things: to define hope for me, and to give a quote. And I actually have a quote.
You did double the homework. I love this.
I did twice the homework necessary, and I think that besides having an inclination toward positive outcomes in the things that we do, we also need to have a sense of humor. We need to be able to laugh at ourselves and laugh at even the tragedies that happen. And so I think it's very important. So I chose a quote to share with you that, interestingly enough, comes from Bob Hope. So it's a quote about hope from Bob Hope.
Perfect.
And what he says, and what I agree with, is that he says, I have seen what a laugh can do. It can transform almost unbearable tears into something bearable, even hopeful. So being able to see the humor can be a source of hope.
Wow, great point. That's an impressive quote.
He's got the right name,
He does. I've never connected his last name to this project, and that's an obvious link. Thank you. You're good at connecting dots, I can tell. Yeah.
I do connect the dots. Sometimes I connect too many dots, but that's true.
That's great. Okay, well then question 2, who's shared that kind of hope with you? Who's been the biggest giver of hope to you?
Well, I'm going to go with my mother first, because she was always there and always hopeful. She said things like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything.
I've heard that before.
And she, I think, instilled in me a sense of faith and hope, and I have a great debt to my mother for sure, in the way that I am today. But more recently, and specifically because of the work I do with the ReFood movement, I'm going to have to say that it's the people in the different cities and boroughs all over Portugal who have decided to make a difference using the ReFood model as a tool to produce results in their community. That's what gives me hope and makes me see that it has a tremendous amount of power because of the goodwill of the people who want to implement it. Mm-hmm. And it's a constant for me because I'm constantly going between teams in different cities here in Portugal and helping them through rough patches or whatever is necessary to get the work done. And it never ceases to amaze me, their competency and grit and hopefulness. They're there to get it done, and it inspires me.
Brilliant. I love that. That's really cool. It's a circle. You give to them, they give to you, and you get to give more to them, and round we go. That's great.
Yeah. It's very cool.
Question 3 then, when was a time in your life when you really had to rely on the hope you're talking about? Because you've got a lot of good things going right now, obviously, and you're cruising in a sense. So take us back there and tell us what you've overcome and how you've done that.
Well, I would say the main thing I have overcome is my own idea of myself, which has sometimes led me down the wrong paths. And so I would say the thing that I've overcome is, in fact, myself. That was the main thing I had to overcome. And I've, created a life and have it slip away completely. Lost everything, I think, is the term we usually use. And so I've had a couple of those. The most recent one was, in fact, the thing that gave me the impetus to think about, if I'm having trouble, well, what about other people? They might be having trouble too, and what are some solutions? So it was only in losing everything when I was most recently, when I was 59, that I took a look in the mirror and I said, hey, this guy's not as young as he used to be. And so I'm going to reinvent my career. I have to do that again, but maybe I don't have so many more chances to reinvent my career, and maybe this time I need to do something for other people. So that was the genesis of the ReFood movement, was first deciding that this time it's not going to be about me, it's going to be about other people. But that was a fundamental decision. It was very important in my trajectory. But it wasn't the first time I'd lost everything. And I guess when I was about 30, I had built a kind of a rock and roll empire in Richmond, Virginia. I'd opened a nightclub and a restaurant and a concert company and was producing concerts. And I was like 26 years old at the time. And my hair was down to here. And, it was a couple of hundred years ago. So things were different. But I thought everything was just fine. I was just doing everything I wanted to do. And suddenly it all just disappeared. And that, is kind of a reset button. It's kind of like turning the computer off, turn it back on to see if the things work better. And I find that the negative experiences, which are always accompanied by plenty of pain, also are accompanied by opportunity. And in the opportunity of in our failures, this opportunity, if we look for it, is there. And but it can only be acted upon if you can see it with the eyes of hope. So losing everything for me has actually been a very educational process when I was younger and more recently. And I was able to see things that I couldn't see without the negative experiences. Mm-hmm. So I would say I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I sure did need it.
Yeah.
So
I get that. I hear that. Man, that's great. That's a really interesting way to say that you had to get over yourself. That's really
well. I don't think I've ever learned anything except through suffering, and I have the hope that my son and my daughters will be able to learn without suffering. But in my case, if I didn't suffer, I didn't learn.
Sure. I get that. Same here. I'm hard-headed, I guess. So, question 4, how are you sharing hope today? So you've come through a lot and you've accomplished a lot. You've been at the top and at the bottom and back and down, up and down. You've done all that, gone through this cycle many times. How are you sharing hope today? Tell us about ReFood. Tell us about real life. Tell us about how you share hope at a coffee shop down the street. It's up to you.
Well, the ReFood movement began with a guy on a bicycle who thought maybe that these restaurants, and there's plenty of them, have good food at the end of the night that goes to the trash. Mm-hmm. It's not something you hear about. I mean, nobody publishes how much good food they throw away. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of a hidden thing. But it occurred to me, and it occurred through a conversation with my daughter, was at a restaurant. We were sitting near the salad bar. And she says, what's going to happen to all that salad at the end of the night? And I said, well, it's going to go to the trash. If they don't sell it today, they're certainly not going to try to sell it tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to the trash. And she thought that was a big shame. She didn't like that. And I saw an opportunity to tease her a little bit. So I continued with the conversation and said, well, it's not just the salad. It's everything they've cooked today that's ready to go, that's not sold, and that they do not intend to sell tomorrow will necessarily go to the trash because they need to wash the pots and pans and start another day tomorrow. Yeah. And she didn't like that at all. And she wanted to blame the people at the restaurant. And I said, well, you can't really blame them because they've worked all day. They need to wash up and go home tired. And they also don't know who's hungry. Mm-hmm. So it's not really their fault. It's a lack of an alternative. Mm-hmm. And when I said the word alternative, that's when the proverbial light went off inside the head. And I said, well, wait a minute. If there was an alternative, how would it be? Yeah. And I sat down and wrote the ReFood movement structure and model that same night. And I showed it to my son the next day and asked him to read it and criticize it. Mm-hmm. And he read it and he looked up at me and he said, well, there's 2 things that I have to say. First is this will work. Mm-hmm. And the second is this will work universally. And it needs to have a universal name, something like ReFood. Yeah. And so it happened just like that in a conversation in the family, and produces results pretty much beyond wildest expectations.
So if I get this right, you're collecting food from vendors, restaurants, whatever, that they haven't used by the end of the day, the trash food, that by regulation or by just lack of being purchased is going to the trash, and it's totally okay. It would have been eaten by a paying customer 5 minutes earlier.
Exactly.
But now it goes somewhere else. You collect it, your organization collects, your volunteers collect it, and funnel it to the people who need a meal that night, but don't have the money to pay for it 5 minutes earlier. Exactly that.
And
how simple is that? And why haven't we thought of that 1,000 years ago?
That's the big question. Huh. That right there is the big question. I know the context of when the idea came to me, but I don't know where the idea came from. Mm-hmm. Because nobody knows where ideas come from. Consciousness is very little understood. Sure. And I can't really claim it as my idea. I can only say that I received the idea and it comes with a responsibility. But where it came from, I can't say. And why it didn't come sooner and earlier to other people, I can't say. But it is the stupidest problem on the earth.
So how many people are y'all reach? How do you, give me some volume numbers here? How many people y'all feeding?
Well, it started in a 7-block area with one person rescuing the food, and it was enough to feed 34 people, 5 days a week, just with one person working. Because you can, it's very efficient because you go to a restaurant, it takes you about 5 minutes to grab their food and leave some empty packages for them to use the next day, mm-hmm. and then go to the next restaurant, which is not far away, and do the same thing. And you can go to 12 or 15 restaurants in 2 hours and have more food than you can carry.
Wow.
And all in perfect condition.
And cooked and ready to go. It's already prepared.
Oh, yeah. Huh. Yeah. So which creates a challenge, which is this has to be done in real time. The food banks, they work with volume of food that's in packages. Mm-hmm. sugar and flour and spaghetti and things like that.
Yeah.
And they have a month to deliver it. But our work has to be that day or in the latest the next day. Mm-hmm. So there's a tremendous amount of food, but more than you can possibly imagine. Trust me on this, more than you can imagine. And it's ready every day in perfect conditions and for free. And it's also in the same place where people are hungry.
So do you have any regulatory issues to get around? I mean, like here in the States, obviously there's a lot of control on our food, but if it's not for sale, I guess you're allowed to give the food without bumping into,
It's not illegal. It's not illegal to donate excess food. I guess that it's not illegal anywhere. It's certainly not illegal in America because there was the Good Samaritan Act passed in the 1990s, which took the responsibility away from the donor.
Great.
But then it's also here in Portugal, the food safety system is taken from the American system, and everybody in Portugal thought that it was illegal. Everybody, if you interviewed a person at a restaurant or anybody, they would say, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. Everybody thinks that. But we finally got the word from the food police. It's here in Portugal. It's called ASAI. It's the governmental entity that has the responsibility for public health and safety and has to monitor the whole food chain from agriculture through distribution to consume.
The equivalent of the United States FDA, Food and Drug Administration.
Exactly. And so what they said is that nothing prohibits the donation of excess food as long as hygiene and temperature and time are respected. So there was no law against it. Just everybody thought there was. And so when I first imagined the project, I imagined that there would be three big problems. The first one would be the FDA. The second one would be the attitudes of the people in the restaurants. And the third one would be the government. And none of those were a problem.
So how big is your footprint now?
Well, we went from 7-block area to 34 communities, from 1 volunteer to 4,583.
Oh, my goodness.
We went from feeding 34 people to 4,064.
Whoa.
We went from rescuing around 800 meals a month to rescuing 83,000 meals a month, which is our current clip.
83,000 meals a month.
Yeah, but that's a lot of people involved to do that. You can't do this with a small team, It takes a lot of.
Getting my calculator out here. Sorry, I'm a numbers geek. 84,000
a month, yeah. But that's 34 different new refood centers working 5, 6, 7 days a week. Some of our partners give us food every day, and of course we deliver it immediately, or if not sooner. Another joke I like. Immediately, if not sooner.
So you're feeding a small town. You're feeding a small town every day.
Yeah, and we're just a drop in the bucket.
Is this only in Portugal, or did you get outside the country?
We have a team working in Madrid to open up. So in Spain, we have one team. It's the only international team right now. But they're not serving the community yet. They're still trying to build the basis.
Okay, the network of restaurants.
Well, no, that comes really easily. What they're trying to build is to have an operations center for free, and to have the community activated and involved. This is the key thing. There is the community to be involved, and the work that we do to build the conditions for a new refood center. It's not about rescuing food. It's about raising the consciousness of people. And so when we go into a new area, we don't rescue any food. We hold a town meeting, and we put up posters and give invitations to people as they walk out of church or as they on the street, and we say, there's perfectly good food going to the trash, and people are hungry, and there's a way to fix it. Do you want to come to this meeting and hear about it? And people say, oh, okay, I'll go to that meeting. Yeah. And so we get, 200, 300, 400 people in a big theater, and then we come in and lay it on them. and say, well, this is what we're doing, and you can do it too, and it's your decision. If you want to do it, we will give you the tools and we'll facilitate it, but it's not us that are going to do it. It's you that will have to do it. And at the end of the meeting, we do a stage call and ask anybody who's interested, not in just being a volunteer, because there's hundreds of people that say, yeah, I'll be a volunteer, because we only ask 2 hours once a week from our volunteers.
Okay.
So very low threshold of involvement for volunteering. We need hundreds of them.
Yeah.
That only works if you have a team of 25 or 30 managers
Gotcha.
who are also volunteers, who give 4 hours once a week, which is also not that much. But only when we can form that management team can we move forward to open the center. It's all about human resources. If the people are there, everything else will come.
And are these homeless people you're feeding, or are they elderly who just can't get out and or prepare their own food? Or, I mean, give me a demographic here. Who are you serving?
Everybody, families, people who've always been poor, always have trouble, people who just lost their job and have very nice clothes but don't have money or food, architects, electricians, people that you wouldn't imagine would need food assistance. So it's a real cross section. It's also homeless people. It's everybody that you could imagine.
So a homeless person, let's put opposite extremes here. Let's say we got a professional who's recently lost a job and can't pay the groceries. So they may still have a place to live and a stove.
He does. But the money that he has, if he, like a subsidio from the government, a subsidy, is that what we say?
Subsidiary.
Subsidy. So if he has a subsidy, maybe that pays the rent and maybe the water and maybe the electricity, but nothing left over for food.
Okay.
So there's lots of people who don't live on the street, but their economic circumstances have changed, and they cannot afford to pay the electricity and food. So our service creates a little breathing room and takes the problem of nutrition off the table. And it's a tremendous relief for people who have children to know that they've got that secure source of food, because food insecurity is a big problem because you don't know where your next meal is coming from.
Yeah. It's
not good for you psychologically. It doesn't help you find a job. It's a big thing. And we can, with a little bit of help from everybody, we can change those circumstances.
I love it. So how can we find you? I usually I'll get this stuff again at the end of the interview, but refoodmission.org, what's the website?
It's www.re-food.org.
www.re- so the little dash.
Yeah,
food,
a dash. Yeah.
FOOD.org. So refood.org. That's really cool. Huh.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're out for a run or shopping or whatever you're doing and listening to this thing or watching it, if you don't have something to write on, you can just go to isharehope.com, click on the interviews tab, and you will find everything about this. We'll make sure you get all the links so that you can find refood.org and social media links, all that. And we want to make sure you and Hunter can get connected in the right way. If you want to support, need food, want to donate, want to be a volunteer, wherever you're coming from, this is really cool.
Yeah, and it works. It's very strange that it wasn't done first. But I should mention that food rescue. We didn't invent food rescue in New York. For example, there's an entity called City Harvest that's been rescuing food for 30 years. So we didn't invent food rescue. I think what we invented was micro-local food rescue, because the one that exists in New York and another in Philadelphia called Philabundance, and one in Australia called Oz Harvest. So these things exist, but ReFood is basically the opposite, because the model that I found, because I didn't know anything about this, I just went and Googled food rescue and started educating myself, because I had launched ReFood before I knew what it was. I didn't know I was food rescue. I didn't know anything, So So I tried to educate myself a little bit about it, and I found that these entities do exist, and they do very good work. But what they do is they target the big donors, like a giant supermarket and places that make a lot of food and have a lot of food left over. And they go there in refrigerated trucks and grab that food and then deliver it to institutions that already have their beneficiaries.
Cool.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so they, and ReFood is basically the opposite, because they have a small team of volunteers that drive these trucks and do that on a super urban scale. And ReFood is basically the opposite, because we designate a neighborhood, a small scale, and we don't go just to the big boys. We go to every single place, and we give the food to people who are not being served by other institutions. So the model that exists in most places is the correct model if your objective is to get as much food as possible with as few people involved as possible, and give it to institutions that are already distributing food. That's the correct model. But every time they go to a big supplier, they pass hundreds of restaurants and don't give them any service, and they can't. And so where they've got a small team and cover a big area and move a lot of food and do a lot of good, no doubt about that. We have a small area, a large team, and we go to every place and get it to people who are not being served. So the innovation is in the micro-local model. But I want to stress that it's not an innovation that came about by me studying what was existing in the world and then saying it can be done differently. It just comes from me saying, okay, I'm going to do this. Here's my bike. Here's the restaurants, and start doing it. So it was not some big, study to come up with an innovation. It just happened.
I mean, you're really picking up the crumbs that the big organizations aren't getting. But the crumbs, just in Portugal, are about 3,000 meals a day. I mean,
but this is a drop in the bucket. We're in 60 communities if you count the ones that aren't open yet. So we've got 34 communities that are functioning, and about 60 if you count the ones that are trying to open and will open. Wow. But each one is in like a little political unit, like a county or like a borough or a parish. Okay.
Very cool. Very cool.
We're in about 60. There are 3,060 boroughs or parishes in Portugal.
Wow.
So we still got 3,000 more to go. We're not doing anything. We haven't done 1%, nothing like 1% of the work that can be done.
Wow.
Of a veritable drop in the bucket. And this is a small country. This is a country the size of North Carolina or Virginia. It's that size. Mm-hmm. And so if you transpose this work and this reality to the States, it's just unthinkable how much food goes to the trash every day. There's no reason for anybody to be hungry.
Very impressive. And you've got so much space in front of you to grow. I love that feeling. Wow. Huh. All right, question 5.
More space than time.
Yeah. Question 5. Tell us the simple steps. Give us some ABCs or 1, 2, 3s of how we can start sharing hope around us or growing in hope. As the people listening to you, what do we do next when we click stop on this audio or video feed?
Well, if you think food rescue is cool, you can find out who's rescuing food in your community. Mm-hmm. If you think ReFood is cool, you can be a ReFood pioneer, and we'll help you start up ReFood in your community. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of work. It's not a quick thing. It's about community activation and community organization before it's about food rescue, because when we build a ReFood center, we want it to last forever. We want it to last for years and years and years. And so it's not something that we jump into lightly. We activate the resources of the community, and then when everything's right, we open and we don't close. No ReFood center is ever closed, and we want to keep it that way. But anybody who wants to do that kind of work in their community can contact us. During the next year, during 2017, we're going to migrate our replication process from a presential process, which it is currently in Portugal, to a platform, to a virtual platform where we can accompany many, many more teams to get this work done faster and all over the world. But we're not there yet. So we're going to be there soon. We have a new partner. It's going to help us with the platform, and we're going to get built, and we'll be able to replicate much faster. It's already exponential, but this showing up at every place is not feasible.
It's really, really great.
But I'd like to share something besides this opportunity. I would like to share that this is an example of a thing that you can do in your community, but there are many, many more. And all anybody has to do is open their eyes and look around and see something that shouldn't be, something that's wrong, and make it right. That's what ReFood does with food waste and hunger. But there are many, many other opportunities, and each person needs to look and see what they can do. And in that regard, I'd like to share the following. Never miss an opportunity to help someone. Every helpful act creates a cascade of goodwill far beyond what we can see or know. The way to make the world a better place is to do what you can for who you can every day and in every way. This generates hope, which empowers others to do the same. So just do what you can where you are.
Perfect. Well said. Well said. This has been really, really encouraging. It really has. Thank you for your time, Hunter.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure, Chris, and I'm glad we got to see each other.
I am too. It's worked out really well. Okay, so just to repeat, we got everywhwere.org is the website. Are y'all all over social media? Should we search you out if we're on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter?
Well, ReFood has a central Facebook page with about 60,000 followers, but it doesn't have the hyphen. The Facebook, for some reason, didn't like the hyphen, and so ReFood on Facebook has no hyphen, just ReFood.
Great.
And each one of the local communities has its own Facebook page, so there's another 60 pages.
Nice.
Then we've got the site, and the concept is super simple. The food's there, the excess is there, the necessity is there, and all it takes is volunteers to build a human bridge between excess and necessity, and it resolves the problem. In fact, it resolves both problems. It resolves the food waste problem, and it resolves the hunger problem. But it does a third thing: is it builds community, and that's something I didn't see coming. When I wrote the rough draft, I saw that it was possible to end food waste and it was possible to end hunger, but it never occurred to me that this would build community in places that are fragmented. And all our cities, all our communities are fragmented because we don't know the person who lives on the other side of the hall or the other people in the building or the other people down the street. Especially in cities, I think it's normal because we didn't grow up there. We moved there, and so people don't know each other, and they don't have that common thread that binds them together. So there's alienation and people distrustful of each other and don't say hi, things like that. And ReFood actually changes that because it creates a common point of interest in the community. And so we have retired people and kids and young professionals and students and people from all over. So a ReFood team is not, just a bunch of young guys or just a bunch of old guys. It's a cross section of the community. That for me is actually the coolest thing, and I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I agree. That's the coolest thing too. The community connection is such a craving that we all have, and it's so cool to see that happening. And not just a mutually shared coffee shop experience, but actually a community that's building onto the community and growing the community, making the community actually healthier in the process of enjoying itself. It's so perfect.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. That's why I know it's not just my idea, because I have lots of good ideas. This one is way too good to be my idea.
Well, man, I appreciate you championing the idea and taking it forward, because that's a lot of meals you couldn't be preparing on your own every day. So, man, what a great thing. Well, Hunter,
pretty good.
Valuable time that I have spent with you. This has been so valuable for me. Thank you.
Absolutely.
For your time. And if anybody has any questions or wants to make comments about this or talk to Hunter, again, isharehope.com. You can find the interview for Hunter Halder in the interview section at isharehope.com. Also, Chris Williams HQ is my Twitter handle, Instagram handle, Facebook handle, whatever, Chris Williams HQ, and I'll sure be talking to and about Hunter in those places. So can't wait to see you there. And Hunter, again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris. It was my pleasure.
My pleasure as well. Hunter, before you go, let me get you to say your name and I Share Hope. So I'm Hunter Halder, and you can say something about Refood if you'd like, and I Share Hope. So we can put that at the beginning of the audio on the podcast.
Okay. My name is Hunter Halder, and I share hope.
Do it one more time. It cut out just a little bit.
My name is Hunter Halder, and I share hope.
Perfect. Man, thank you for your time. Again, it's great to see your face, not just hear your voice. And I look forward to talking again.
All right.
We will. Don't worry. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. Bye-bye.
You've just listened to I Share Hope. If you're ready to make a change, head to our website at isharehope.com and claim your free copy of the Top 10 Actions of Hope from World Leaders to use hope in your own life. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.